Okay, people, welcome on. Welcome, everybody. All right. It's been an interesting time on the markets. All right, we're back. I hope the quality is a lot better. You guys let me know what you see. All right, and we're live now. I want to make sure that things look better because we're trying to make things the best that they can be so that all of you can enjoy the benefits of our live analysis sessions. Okay, so we'll be around making sure that everything is good. If you see something that is not up to scratch or something that you want to see change, then definitely we are going to make sure that we get that to change. Okay. But we definitely want to see what is actually going on when it comes to the price action of the market. So I'm starting off here with Swiss franc pairs. Now, again, we're in an interesting position. I think we're going to see some very interesting things take place on the Swiss franc. Now, currently, I'm still in the short. Now, if you haven't seen me on any of the live sessions, I've been in a short on Swiss franc Japanese yen USD Swiss franc for a while. I was also in USD, AUD USD, AUD CHF, and also Swiss franc Japanese yen. Now, my idea for the play that I'm looking at right now, I'm playing on what we have with the Delta variant and Delta Plus also when it comes to COVID, because at the moment, the economic condition is alluding to the fact that we have shipping issues. Now, Switzerland as a country, okay, is a very interesting country. And we talked about it before, but I don't mind outlining these points again so that you're very clear as to what's going on. So, for example, Swiss franc, okay, so Swiss franc, if you're not too sure what CHF means, let's talk about the economic infrastructure for just a moment. So Switzerland, okay, as a country, all right, number one, most important thing is that their GDP, okay, even before their GDP, I want to slow it down even more. Let's just talk about the country in terms of what it produces or what it does. Now, the country's sector is split out into three major parts. Okay, so every economy has major sections of productivity that translate into value, which translate into GDP. Now, as a structure of a country, 76% approximately of the country of Switzerland's money comes from the service sector and primarily the tertiary service sector. So like banking, finance, insurance, things of that nature. Okay. All right. 25% comes from, now I did go through this and I will pull up again a very nice, I'll leave a link in the description below for sure. If you guys want to have a look, a link to show you guys the main facts and figures about Switzerland. Now, 25% of their GDP comes from manufacturing. And then the last 1% or 1% or just less than 1% or approximately, all right, is from agriculture. Now, what does this tell you about this country? Now, a country that's very low producing and when it comes to agriculture is not going to be a country that is high in commodities because of the geographical structure. Switzerland didn't choose, to be where it is in that sense. So Switzerland's geography doesn't have that much commodity in it. So gold, silver, and things like that. Countries that are higher in agriculture usually have higher amounts of commodities or natural resources. So as a country, Switzerland has a high service sector. So in other words, tertiary sector, so insurance, banking, things like that, which means that there's a lot more purchasing of services for goods and services, or economically speaking, there's a lot more banking and banking sectors in Switzerland than there would be, gold and silver companies in that sense of the raw end and mining and things of that sort. Now, why is this important? when an economy has a topology like this, what's the second point that's important here? Number two, I put these in points, okay? It's going to be highly dependent on exports, okay, to run. All right. Switzerland as a country, because it's highly service and then manufacturing, means that it needs, I'm going to put here, requires raw materials to make products. All right. So 2A here requires raw materials. So for example, in Switzerland, Switzerland is very well known for Swiss watches. Now that's the final product, but the metals and the different pieces needed, the quartz and all of the other important materials that they need in order to create these watches or make these watches do not reside in Switzerland. They have to be imported from other countries to Switzerland. All right, so it requires more raw materials for that. Now, within their manufacturing sector, some of the major parts would be things such as chemicals as well. Switzerland is very well known for producing chemical products that are used in laboratories. So they still, again, need raw materials that they can work with in order to be able to produce goods. Now, the B part, they require raw materials to make products because without making the products, they're not going to generate income. But the second part here, which is also important and even more dangerous, is that because their agriculture level is so low, depend on exports, okay? Or depend on imports in for food. Now I need to change this because I meant to say that they're highly dependent on imports to run. They need a lot of imports coming into the country from other countries for them to run. Okay. Now Swiss chocolate is very well known, but most of that chocolate cocoa or the cocoa to make the chocolate comes from Ghana. Now recently I saw that Ghana has stopped shipping over its cocoa to Switzerland for whatever reason. But I just saw the short clip of that, but I'm not too sure as to why. I think mainly is because of the unequal wealth proportion that is gained, because the country that like Ghana who produces the cocoa compared to the countries who take the cocoa to use it, the amount of money that Ghana earns compared to these countries is basically peanuts. So they've stopped doing that and they'll be making their own chocolate and things of that sort. So interesting stuff here. Now, part B, depending on imports for food, all right, as a country, because it's not highly agricultural, okay, a lot of the food and the meats and things that they need in order to run to feed their people comes from outside. Now, why am I talking about this so much? Now, because of COVID-19, all right, COVID-19, because of COVID-19, it's caused a few issues. Number one is restrictions, okay, restrictions to shipping, all right? So in other words, import, it is important, but I'm not writing important, import, export links, all right? Some of the major exporters to Switzerland is the US and China, which are both having the effects of situations going on with COVID. Some shipping routes have actually been, some shipping stations have been closed down, which means that there's a reduced service. And Switzerland not only depends on this just to feed the people, but they also depend on it for their economy, all right, for some parts of the economy anyway. And so if shipping goes down, then a lot of their GDP or their wealth that they're creating will start to go down with it. Okay, and this is one of the biggest issues with Switzerland right now. Now, currently, if you want to say I'm placing my bets, probably not the best word, but I'm placing my bets that as things are developing, I do expect there to be more lockdowns. And the situation in the US, which has just spiked up now, and also weather situations that happen in the US, will definitely, I believe, produce a slowed service to Switzerland, okay? Now, there's other countries that export to Switzerland, which are closer to home, like, for example, the UK, all right? Now, Switzerland's major import and exporting partner, or their major partner who they export their goods out to, is Europe. and then the rest of the world, but primarily Europe because they're in close proximity. They're in the same continent. And even though Switzerland is not part of the European Union, they're very close to, they're surrounded literally by countries that are. So a lot of their goods and watches and different things that they produce goes out to them. Roughly about 52%, which is a lot. So a lot of the money that Switzerland is earning at the moment comes from the European countries and, you know, in the euro. So they have a lot of foreign deposits in euros for sure, which brings us to another point. So moving forward from here, I do expect in the short term for Switzerland to gain strength. So the short that I'm looking for right now is a highly technical short. And I am in USD CHF right now. On the daily time frame, if I break this down before I go back to the fundamentals here, the previous month's high is right here. We've come very close to it today. Now, I was in the short from last week. I swung this trade over the weekend. We had 2 good days of short that produced about 75 pips. My stop loss is quite wide on this account because the risk is very low, but I'm expecting the price to come for this high here. So this high right here is the high of the previous month, and I expect the price to get here and then begin to short. Today, we've had a bit of a reaction where the price has given us a few pips on the short side. From my entry, is only done about 11.8 pips, nothing major. All right. Now, I could see right now the price pulling down even further and probably producing another one more push long before going short. If the price chooses to go short from where it is and continue throughout the whole week, I'm expecting in the, I would say the intraday time frame for the Swiss franc to gain strength against the dollar. And if that does happen, as it should do, you know, from a technical standpoint, then it'll be a very fantastic piece of price action to behold. Now, originally, I was in the short from earlier on. If you were on the live with me, I actually gave this one out. We had a situation here where the price didn't return to supply, but then did return to supply back up here. So I was waiting for the price to get back up here, and I took the sell from this point, and I closed really on Friday. Okay, and then we saw after this point, it's taken about 21 days. Well, today is including today and the previous days, it's taken 24 days for the price to get very close to where the price started from. So I'm intrigued to know what's going on, but I can see that there is an accumulation here. And I think last week we really saw a breakout of the range. And I'm convinced that the market is just stalling for us to see a short. Now I'm looking to swing this trade. If I be really real with you, I'm looking to swing this trade even into next week, because next week, all right, if I pull this up here for you guys quickly. So if I pull up next week's news, not really this week we do have somewhat of news. If I go through what we have for the week already, starting from this point right here. Here we go. So if I start from Tuesday, really, because we haven't had much on Monday. Tuesday, we start off with pound news. We have Australian dollar news at 3:45 in the morning, which is a speech from Governor Lowe, which could bring some activity into the market. And then 7, we have the pound news. But this week, we don't have the most serious US news at the moment. Okay, we have CPI for August, you know, comparing month by month and then year of year. All right. And then on into Wednesday, probably not the most high impact Wednesday for now anyway. We don't have much US dollar news going on. All right. But however, next week, all right, which is the week that I'm really setting my sights to, which I believe these pieces of news have enough potential to push the price in the direction that we're expecting, which is short. So let's just let this load up here. If this does happen, then we do have a good opportunity. Now, I don't know what's going on with the economic calendar. All right, here we go. So it's loaded now. So if I scroll down a little bit here. So Tuesday, we do have some Australian dollar news, but the high impact news really starts from Wednesday. Now, I'm sure this will be updated and probably there'll be more, but I want you guys to see this. So on Wednesday, we have the FOMC minutes. We also have the interest rate decision, which, again, you don't have to, I mean, the Federal Reserve is, most central banks anyway, especially the Federal Reserve, they make it quite clear when they're going to hike or decrease interest rates. Due to the COVID uncertainty, them increasing interest rates too early would be a problem, because then money will become more expensive, less people will be spending, and that could cause the economy to crumble. Because without spending, we can't see growth. Now, this, even if the news stays the same, which I expect it to do, the price will move somewhat. Okay, now also the FOMC's economic projections will also be written here, and I believe that the report will cause the price to move more than the interest rates itself, because there isn't any interest rate decision change going to happen at least until 2023, which is going to be the longest that interest rates have stayed low for a very long time. And then we also have a speech at 7:30. Now, if this speech is what it's supposed to be, now already the tapering is being called off. All right, there is no tapering according to what Jerome, I was going to call him Jeremy, but Jerome Powell has mentioned. So the fact that there is no tapering is a bearish sign for the US dollar in the short term anyway. Now, they could turn around. It could be just a nice trick to say this and then turn around in October and say, you know what, guys, by the way, we're going to be doing the tapering. That can happen. All right, but for the moment, we should be okay. Now, on Thursday, now, why am I thinking about this? USD CHF. So if this was a trigger to push the price short to start off with, we also have the interest rate decision and the monetary policy for the Swiss National Bank. Now, it's always confusing because when you think about it, it's National Bank. Sometimes you're not too sure if it's the central bank. It is the Central Bank of Switzerland. Okay, the interest rates at the moment is minus 0.75. And this is coming out at 8:30 in the morning. So if these two pieces of news work out, if this US dollar news is continuing to be bearish for now, and then the Swiss franc news is also bullish, then that should push USD CHF down short. So for me, I'm mapping it out that I'm probably going to have to swing these trades for another week, at least, for us to see the price do what it needs to do. That's just the truth of the matter. And I don't mind waiting, to be honest. Good trades take time. And this is just the case that we're in at the moment. So, looking at what is going on here in the market, we do have, reasonable opportunity for us to really get things cracking on. So I'm keeping my eyes peeled, and I'll be watching to see what happens all through now till next week. Now, coming back to the charts again, all right. Coming back to the charts again, I would say if the price takes too long to make the movements that I want, then I probably would close as well and just wait for another chance, because I don't want to swing forever at the same time. And if I can just close and get a higher up entry, which the entry I really do want is here. Now, once the price does what we need around here and it starts to reverse, I wouldn't have any worries about any news. But for now, I'm just keeping my position stuck where it is, swung. The price has done a few pips long and then short, but it didn't return back where it's supposed to. So I'm not really moved by this movement. This is just kind of like movements that are happening by the way. So I'm not really fussed really at all. All right. Now I'm also looking at Swiss franc Japanese yen, which has just returned to a major area here of demand. This really is the crux of our movement that we're looking for. But again, I would expect the price to dip a little bit lower, maybe take the low of today around about here and then take off. So the prices of both the US dollar versus the Swiss franc and Swiss franc Japanese yen have just entered into areas of opportunity. They've just entered into areas where the price could really give us, in this case with Swiss franc Japanese yen, based on the price action, I'm looking for a target right back up here, which means from where the price is, we're looking at over 300 pips. We're looking at 318. Once the price gets here, I'll be expecting to see a very strong sell moving forward. Now, the price, I definitely can tell that the price is playing hard to get at the moment. I'm not trying to give away too much. I can see that market just keeps trying to push lower and get people out of this position. But to me, I see the potential of the movement and I know what the market is trying to do. Now, I'm hoping that the initiation is this week and we don't have to really wait for the news. We just need that small little push on the price and that should be it. So these are the opportunities I'm really seeing right now, guys. And I think right now, these opportunities are some of the best out there in terms of a trade. If you're looking for one, these are the ones that I would say for you guys to look at. We've just entered into this area here. Now I'm going to put the Fibonacci in. I don't really use it that often anymore, but for the sake of this video, I mean, the price is around the optimal trade entry area. And then we have 78.9 and then 86 not too far after. Now, a good little movement that could happen would be even a price point down lower. And I will be looking at this even on the 5-minute and 1-minute time frame for the sharpest entry. But even just from this schematic I've shown you guys, there is much potential for a long. Of course, I wouldn't just say to go and buy now, because your stop loss is going to be literally 40 pips. Now, if you're happy with that, then you can go for it. But I'm looking for a stop loss more towards the 10 pip mark, even 5 pips. So I'd rather have a more specific entry. But even from where the price is right now, to be fair, it is a really, really good position to be in. And I expect Swiss franc Japanese yen to do well. And those 300 pips, I'll be really excited to collect those. So if you're watching me and you're looking for these two, these are really my two. Now, this is not the normal pair correlation that I would engage in, but I'm seeing this Swiss franc scenario happening, this economic scenario starting to catch up with the markets. And I think we are going to see in these weeks to come some very good opportunities springing forth from it. So I would say keep your eyes on Swiss franc news. All right. You can give it a quick search and find out what's going on. All right. As a country, which is a consumer currency, remember Swiss francs are used primarily, all right, to purchase things. The reason is because the country is an importing country. So a lot of Swiss francs go towards purchasing imports from outside and purchasing things. Same as the dollar. The dollar is used primarily to buy commodities and different things of that nature. And, of course, it's the world's reserve currency. So it's used for a lot of denomination of stocks and different things of that sort. So ideally, Switzerland being where it is right now, if the COVID situation improves, the Swiss franc will have some more boost on it. And I'll be hoping to see this movement very soon. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, very short and sweet.